everybody, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Lysha and I am the owner of Lysha Be Creative, and here in this channel I create all things tumbler tutorials and other resin related crafts. Today's video is going to be a resin related craft, and we're going to be creating an acrylic notebook. So of course you guys know I'm going to be using lots of glitter and lots of sparkle to really bring this acrylic notebook to life. And so everything I use in today's tutorial will be listed and linked down in the description box down below. You'll even find some discount codes to help you save a little bit of money on your craft supplies. So let's go ahead and get started on today's tutorial. All right, so of course we're going to be starting with these acrylic notebook blanks. I actually was sent these from my girl Lindsay over at Vinyl Gallery. I do believe that these are things that she sells, but I'm not quite sure that they're listed on her website. I definitely will list her website down in the description box and a couple of other places that you can also grab up some acrylic notebook blanks. So the first thing I'm going to do is match them up to make sure I have both a front and back side, making sure I don't remove the paper from the wrong side, and I'm going to remove the paper from the one side of each blank. Now we're going to get these prepped just like we would for a keychain or a tumbler. So just scuffing them up with my 60 grit sanding block nicely and making sure that I have a very scuffed up surface before I go ahead and clean these with some 91% rubbing alcohol and a coffee filter. So after these are cleaned up, they are ready to go for me to take outside to prep them. So I'm going to be doing like a rustic pink and white design on these, and so I'm going to base paint the back portion of the blank with a white spray paint, a matte white spray paint, and then the front I'm going to spray with this rustic pink from Rust-Oleum. So I'm going to take these outside and let's move on to the next step. Now that these are prepped and ready to go, I'm going to do sort of a cheat glitter method with these blanks. So I'm using what has been my go-to epoxy recently because it is so quick and cures so quick, probably why it's called lightning cure, but this is lightning cure epoxy from the epoxy resin store. It has been my absolute favorite to use for those crafts that I want to just get done and completed within a few hours or just a full day. So I'm going to mix together epoxy in 2 separate medicine cups so I have enough for the back of the notebook and enough for the front of the notebook. So I'm mixing about 30 mLs in each of my medicine cups here, which should be more than enough for coverage of this entire blank. And so once I get those mixed together, I am going to add a little bit of glitter to both of these. So in the medicine cup that is closest to me, I'm going to be putting a little bit of Diamond Magic, and in the back one, I'm going to be using Daisy from Maisha Creations. So both of these are from Maisha Creations. The Diamond Magic is a mica that you can mix into your epoxy, and the Daisy is a white glitter that is absolutely beautiful, and I've actually used it in a couple of tutorials so far. I absolutely love it. Definitely encourage you to grab it up, and I have a brand new discount code with Maisha Creations that will save you a little bit of money, so definitely go stock up on her glitter because they are absolutely gorgeous. I'm also going to add a couple drops of some Pearl Pinata alcohol ink to the one with the mica powder. I wanted to give the rustic pink portion sort of like this swirled look. I knew I would get a beautiful glitter and shimmer from the Diamond Magic mica powder, but I wanted to give a little bit more depth, and I thought that adding a little bit of that Pearl Pinata alcohol ink would really give this beautiful swirl, and I think you'll definitely see what I'm talking about as soon as I get this applied. So I'm going to mix these up really well, and then of course I'm going to get them applied to both of these acrylic blanks. After just a couple minutes of mixing there, we're going to go ahead and get these pots of epoxy poured right onto the blanks. So I'm going to start with the rustic pink one, which has both that Diamond Magic mica as well as a couple drops of the Pearl Pinata alcohol ink, and I'm going to get this applied. So you guys have seen me do clipboards before, kind of in the same method. I'm literally just going to kind of use my hand and finger to just spread this along. I did end up propping these up on a couple of like larger paint cans to keep this elevated a little bit, bit. And the reason why I do that, as you've seen in my clipboard tutorial, is because that allows any epoxy to drip off the edge and not on the underside of the blank, which can be kind of a little bit of a hairy situation because it just takes a little bit longer of a time to kind of get that section cleaned up and scuffed off and sanded off, whatever have you, in those kinds of situations. So I like to keep them propped. It also gives that elevated ability for me to just run my finger along the edge, making sure that I don't have any epoxy that is starting to sort of pour over the sides. That way I have less of a cleanup that I have to do later after I have sort of finished the glittering and epoxying process of both blanks. So once I'm done with the front side, I will go ahead and do the exact same thing with the back side. So again, in that pot of epoxy, I had just Daisy, which is a beautiful white glitter from Lysha Creations. It's going to give this white section just a beautiful, beautiful sparkle and shine. And so, of course, this will be the back half of the notebook, and I can't wait for you guys to see how this totally comes together. So once I've got that fully applied to the blank, I am making sure to also be pretty careful around those holes because I want to make sure I don't accidentally get any epoxy in those sections, because that is obviously where we will put the metal pieces in order to connect our entire notebook together. So I want to make sure I don't end up with resin filled holes there. But once I'm done applying this, I'm going to take a barbecue lighter and just pop any of the bubbles that may be on the surface. You definitely could use a torch, but I've moved from a kitchen torch to a full propane torch. And so because I am not quite with my bearings when it comes to that yet, I can apply it when it comes to cups, but it's easier for me to use just the barbecue lighter to pop any of those bubbles that may be in the epoxy. So now that these are cured in literally 30 minutes, I'm able to move on to the next step. And so we're going to be focusing just on the front portion. So the back portion is actually done. All I'm going to do is add one more coat of epoxy to that, and that is literally going to be done. Everything's sealed in. I'm not going to do anything more with the back portion of the notebook. With the front portion of the notebook, we are going to be incorporating a little bit of a V-split design here. So I've taken a 1-inch painter's tape and just created that V in the center of the notebook, just kind of eyeballing it and making sure it's even on both sides. And now I'm going to take the rest of the painter's tape and just cover the top portion of the V. So I want to keep that beautiful rustic pink, gorgeous pearly sparkliness, and I want to take this back outside to base paint over top of the bottom of the V in a white spray paint. So we're going to do a flat white spray paint on the bottom portion, let that dry with my matte white spray paint, and then we'll be able to move on to adding some decals so that we can go into final coats before, of course, jazzing up and making this even more sparkly than it already is. So while I was waiting for the spray paint to dry, I went ahead and went into Cricut Design Space and ended up cutting out this sweater design. So you saw this same sweater pattern that I used in my ugly Christmas sweater video last Christmas. And so I am reusing that same pattern that I've already have from Etsy, and I've just cut it to size for the blank that I'm using. So I believe that the square that I cut was 6.5 by 6.25, and that was more than enough of the sweater pattern to be able to apply to the bottom portion of my blank here. So I'm just going to apply this in pieces, putting one section on first, making sure not to cover up the holes, and then I'll go back with my transfer tape to go ahead and grab up the second half of that and line those two up and get that applied. What I did do with this pattern is I did cut this on the Tech Wrap shimmer vinyl that I have used in a couple tutorials now. I really love the sparkliness of this, and because I'm putting this over sort of the flat white spray paint, I'm still able to get that beautiful sparkle without having to go back in with another coat of epoxy and added glitter. So I'm still getting that beautiful sparkle look, which of course you guys know I love, and I just love how this is kind of coming together. So obviously everything that is covered currently by the painter's tape is not going to be part of the actual design. So I'm going to take my craft knife and just cut along the blue painter's tape, making sure to slice in half any of the vinyl decals that overlap onto the blue painter's tape, because we're going to be removing this to expose that beautiful rustic pink glitter design underneath. So as soon as I have everything trimmed up, I'm going to go ahead and remove the entire section of painter's tape that has been there to get us to base paint this. Once I'm done applying, or removing rather, the blue painter's tape and any of the excess decals. I then am going to add my final decal before we go into final coats of epoxy. So my very final decal for this acrylic blank for the front portion is this snowflake. So this snowflake, as I've done in the last couple tutorials, is literally just an image from Cricut Design Space. Because I pay for it, they have, plenty of different stencils and images that you can use. So I just pulled this one from Cricut Design Space, but definitely feel free to grab one from Etsy, grab one from Creative Fabrica. There are so many different places that you can grab a snowflake image or a snowflake of your choice for recreation of the same notebook. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to apply this snowflake decal kind of directly in the center portion of the V. So I want to actually pull this very close to the V, but not touching it, because I'm going to be adding some rhinestones to really just wow factor this acrylic notebook and really just make you fall in love with it, really is what I'm trying to do here. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that, making sure I have enough space between the V split section in both the pink and white section so that it doesn't overlap by any means. So one more coat of epoxy over this with my lightning cure epoxy, and now it is time to get into adding some extra sparkle and pizzazz. So I have 3 different kinds of rhinestones here. I have rose gold, I have some crystal rhinestones, and then I also have some of these like frosty transparent white ones. It does come with the silver backing, so technically they are glass rhinestones. However, they do have this really beautiful sort of frosty look to them and look much different than the other 2 stones that I'm using. So starting with that rose gold large SS20 right in the center of the V, I then am taking these 2mm stones in crystal and lining the V split section all the way from that center point outward. And then you're going to see me sort of begin to add some even more sparkle to the rest of the snowflake here. So interchanging the rose gold as well as introducing sort of those frosty white ones as well. And I just felt like there wasn't enough, so I decided to go even bigger. So I decided to kind of use both the rose gold and those frosty white rhinestones to really kind of give like this absolutely beautiful like falling snowflake look, and I just am absolutely thrilled with how this came out. So now that that's finished, the glue takes about 24 hours to cure. I did use crystal glaze glue, and you can grab that from Crown Crystals, where I'll also link all of the stones that I'm using today. And now it's really time to get this assembled at this point. So I've taken the paper backing off the other side of the blank, and now I'm just cleaning up any of the epoxy that may be on the edge there. There were a couple kind of pieces that had gotten of epoxy that had gotten on the edge. So just taking a craft knife, just like you would cleaning up a tumbler, and just kind of scuffing that or removing that from the edge. And then we're going to remove the backing from the front portion and, of course, get this applied. So we're going to be assembling the notebook, and there are a couple of extra pieces that you'll need in order to assemble your notebook. So I got this A5 lined paper from Amazon. I will link it down in the description box. I'm not even sure how many pieces of paper come in this totally, but it fit perfectly for this notebook, was perfect to size, and I am someone who is not always good at buying things off of Amazon because I tend to accidentally buy the wrong size of things because I don't like to measure. So thankfully this was the perfect size and exactly what I needed. I also bought all of these like binder clips that came in several sizes because I had absolutely no idea what size rings I would need. And so I'm using like what I think is the 1-inch ones. This might be like 1.5 inch. Actually, I do think these are the 1-inch ones. It came with various sizes and all packs of 8, like 8 of each size, which was perfect because obviously I need 6 for this notebook in order to be able to assemble it together. I do know that there are other sort of jewelry pieces or other sections that you can purchase that are specific for notebooks, meaning that it has like a bar that connects all of the pieces together so that it's not loose pieces like these binder rings are, but I'll try and link those in the description box as well. I couldn't find them the first time, but I did find them, of course, after later searching for them. So now that this is assembled, let's take a look at the final result. So as you guys know, I absolutely am in love with this notebook. In case you couldn't tell, I'm so excited with how this one came out. It came out even better than expected, and I really hope that you guys did enjoy today's tutorial. Of course, if you did love today's tutorial, give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys again in the next one. Bye!